All right, in our last lesson for our cutouts, I'm going to teach you how to clean up a cutout and why this is so important. So right now, so far, we haven't had the opportunity to put any cutouts onto a graphic. And that's okay. Don't panic. I'll show you how to do that. However, one thing we want to pay attention to is that we want to make sure that we clean up around the cutout so that no matter what color background we put it on, it doesn't look bad. And so one of my best suggestions for doing that is going to your layers panel and then making a new layer. And we're going to drag this layer behind. And I just like to call this cleanup. We're not going to actually save this layer. This layer will eventually get deleted, but for the time being, it just serves as having a background because it's nice to have some color when you're going around and looking at your edges. So I'm going to start by just saying edit fill, and I'm going to fill it with just white. So where it says use, I'm going to drop this down and just say white. If you want to try it on black, you certainly can. It really, I like to test them on both to see how that looks. And then I take my zoom tool and I'm just going to zoom in really close. And so right off the bat, you can see I kind of have some dark spots where I didn't do a very good job of lining up my edges very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm clicked on my cutout layer and I'm going to get my eraser tool out. Now the thing I want to talk about with the eraser is that some kids I have found try to just use their eraser instead of using the pen tool. And I'm going to tell you that I can tell immediately when you do that because your hand, when you're using the eraser, is not as steady as you think it is. You get a really wobbly line. It does not look good. Um, and I will likely make you do it again. So don't do that. I can't stress that enough. Don't do that. But what I do use it to do is I'm going to change my hardness to 100% because I want it to be a real sharp edge here. It shouldn't be faded at all. And then also notice that the last time I used this, I had my opacity at 50%. So I need to change this up to 100. And then this might be a little bit big, so I'm just going to use my brackets again to downsize it. And all I'm going to do is just kind of trim up that kind of darker color. And you can even see there my hand, and I'm using my trackpad instead of an actual mouse, so that makes a little bit of a difference. I didn't bring my mouse home with me, so I'm kind of in the hurt bag. But you can see that you get this real bumpy edge instead of it being smooth. So I try to just take off any of the real dark areas, just a little bit of a cleanup there so that if I were to have it on a white background, you wouldn't have that really large or noticeable dark edge. Now, when it comes to doing hair, the thing we want to keep in mind with hair is that the majority of the time, unless you have someone that has like a really smooth, sleek hairstyle, most of the time what we're going to want to do with hair is we're going to want to use a feathered edge. So with my brush, I'm going to come back down to where my hair starts here. With my eraser, I am going to switch my hardness back to that 0. So 0 again is going to be that real feathered edge. And I'm going to turn my opacity down a little bit. Now part of this is that you just kind of have to get used to it. And you kind of have to test things depending upon the hairstyle that you have. So you can see all I'm doing is really kind of feathering this edge. You don't want to have anything too sharp. And so this can be a very time consuming process, especially if you have hair that is super curly like our other gentleman over there. And all I'm doing is really feathering that edge so we don't have such a sharp area. It just tends to look more natural than if we do anything else. So you can see where this would take a while to go around the whole head. It's a lot of just short little bursts of clicking. If you feel comfortable, you can bump that opacity up a little bit more, and that'll kind of help have you smooth it out. My brush size is actually a little bit too big here, so I'm going to bring it back down and try to smooth out some of those edges. So you just kind of go around and smooth it out. I'm going to show you right up in here. This would be a place in particular where I would want to turn my opacity down quite a bit, and then just kind of feather in there so it kind of starts to we lose a little bit of that background that's around the edges. So again, it just is one of those things where you kind of have to do a little trial and error. Don't be afraid of it. The one thing I will say is that you only have those 20 states. So be conscious of the fact that if you try or need to go back, remember in your history panel, you only have 20 states. So just be aware of that because they do go very quickly when you're, clicking ever so often. So obviously I would go all the way around his hair, and you can see where that would take a little bit of time. I just want to show you the difference when you use it over here. Kind of the same thing. Always make sure you adjust your opacity as needed. I'm going to bump mine back up to like that 85% range or so. I'm still going to use that really feathered edge. The other thing that you can do is if you don't want such a feathered edge, I mean 0 is really feathered, you can bring that up. I wouldn't go past 30 or 40%, but you can still get, that kind of soft feathered edge without being at 0. But it's just kind of a trial and error sort of opportunity. So you just kind of go around and really feather that hair out to get that smooth edge, because obviously with it being really really sharp right now, really angular, it doesn't look very natural. So I just feather it out, smooth it out, and I'll go back here so you can see that it starts to look a little bit more natural than like I literally just chopped his hair off over here. So that's what I was just going to let you know of. Just be careful of it. If you notice as you go around the edges that you have little black spots here, just go ahead, you get your eraser, you bump that hardness back up to 100, and then you just kind of swipe out any of those dark areas. It could be white, it just depends on what your background is. So you just kind of clean up your cutout. The thing, as I said, is you would never, ever, ever want to take the eraser and do the whole thing because it looks awful. It's very easy to spot. So we would obviously do this for the entire thing. We'd go all the way around, do the hair, check all of our other edges. And then when you're completed cleaning up a cutout, you always want to delete the background, or the cleanup layer, I like to call it. I just delete that off, it's gone, and then we're back to being transparent. So again, if I go back here under the cutout tips, once again I have, not getting rid of the background, here we go, fixing hair. Okay, so this is just some more tips about how to use your eraser tool to fix hair or fix any parts of your cutout. So that is there for you to access as well. Just at the end here, I want to show you an example. So this is actually a cutout that one of my students did and turned into me. And what I want to show you is that if you have it without anything, you're like, it doesn't look so bad. It looks like they did an okay job. Okay? And you come in here and you're like, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then what you do is you put it on a black background. And look at what we have. Do you see all of the excess that is around this cutout? All of this extra white. White, white, white. white, white, white. Left a piece in there. All of this excess. This is someone who did a really poor job of cutting out all around the face. All up in here. Look at his hair. Look at that hair. Look at her hair. This would be considered an unacceptable cutout. Also, I can easily tell in here, and you maybe can too, with how jagged it is, that part of the problem is this person likely took their eraser tool and just tried to erase the entire background instead of using their pen tool. And you can see what the issues are. So I always check your cutouts in both a black background and I put it on a white background. So if I went to edit and did fill and white, it honestly doesn't look that bad because what they cut out was white. The background they cut off of was white. So you can't actually tell that it's too bad when I look at it on here. But when I switch it back and put it on black, we start to see all of the issues. So make sure that when you're doing it, it's not a bad idea to use your cleanup layer. Try black, try white, and make sure that they look good on both, because that would mean if you have a light background, it'll look good. If you have a dark background, it'll look good. So either way, I just wanted to show you that it's easy for me to tell when you do a good cutout and when you don't do a good cutout. So I am going to just do a control save on my hair because our last lesson that I want to show you is how you put your cutouts onto a graphic. So we'll show you how to do that next.